I was recently invited to contribute to a new anthology book called Australia Burns: Tales of Devastation and Courage Under Fire. Now this is a massive, over 100-page book, and all the proceeds are going to the bushfire relief. There's actually 6 different charities that the funds are all going to. So I was given the choice if I wanted to do a pin-up or a short story. I decided to do a short story because I really needed to challenge myself. I've always wanted to do comic books, and this seemed like an achievable project. So I'm really quite happy with the results. I learnt an absolute lot of stuff, and I thought I would make this video to show you guys the process that I went through and kind of share some of the things that I learnt. So let's get into it. So in terms of the story, all I had to begin with was a couple of really small thumbnails that were in my sketchbook. There was no real drawing in them at all. They were just like really basic. From then I basically took it page by page, so just really roughing in the basic composition and the basic panels and kind of like the basics of the story. And once I've did all 4 pages, because it was 4 pages to begin with, I kind of put them all together and just to see how it would flow together and do all the text and all that sort of stuff. So there was a bit of narration and a bit of vocals. And that's kind of how I wrote the story, which I actually really enjoyed. The thing that I've been struggling with for a long time is like, how do I write a story? Because I'm not really much of an actual writer. I don't really sit down and I type on my computer to write stories. It's always felt really unnatural for me. So I can doodle and like write some stuff in sketchbooks. That seems much more me. But for this project, I've basically just started storyboarding each page and doing the story that way, and that seemed to work for me. So from there, once I had all the story sort of planned out, it was time to refine the pencils. And so this is using my new pencil brush that I've actually made in Procreate. I'm calling it the liquid pencil at the moment, just because of the way it kind of reacts when you're using it, but I'll leave that for another video. But yeah, I'm kind of doing it backwards as well. I'm starting with panel 3, and that's mainly because I really wanted to nail down how I wanted the characters to look and the environment and such, so I kind of worked backwards. And I've been seeing a whole bunch of horrible images on the news of like these koalas and wildlife that have been burnt and singed, and it's absolutely heartbreaking. But it's immediately what came to mind is, you know, these poor koalas who have been burnt, and they just look so sad. And yeah, I sadistically wanted to put that in here and capture that, and just referencing even like how their fur kind of like changes color, and it sort of just the way it looks. So I wanted to capture that. And the landscape I didn't really do too much research on. I kind of just went with what my gut instinct was, just a completely burnt out sort of bushland. And we've got our 2 characters walking. So yeah, my story is basically about change in your life, if you're a koala especially, but you know, you can take it as a metaphor if you want, because when change comes, like drastic, tragic change that happens in our lives, you know, it's really hard to deal with things like that. I guess the moral of the story is basically treat others how you wish to be treated, you know, because when we're in need, you know, so many people have helped me over the years when I've had some pretty hard times, and I think it's important that I remind myself to be compassionate to other people, and help people where I can, you know, because realistically, I mean, the story is a little bit preachy sometimes. You could kind of see it that way. But I'm really just preaching to myself. Like, that's kind of how I was seeing the story. I was just reminding myself that, I need to be more compassionate, because I can get very, very focused on my own world, my own art, my own goals, and it's quite overwhelming, actually. And I don't very often come out of my own bubble and, see the world around me. So this is a great opportunity to at least do something for other people, contribute to a charity. So I thought that was a really cool thing to do. So the ink brushes I'm using are actually 2 ink brushes that I've actually made myself. One is like a dry ink brush. So if you think of like a Pentel brush pen that's run out of ink, that's pretty much what I was using for all the trees and the ground. So it's got this really textured, dry feeling to it, which I wanted to do something different. A lot of my earlier digital work is just so clean and crisp, and I just can't stand it anymore. Like, I just need to have texture and depth to the illustrations. So I started out with another ink brush called Sloppy Ink. And I did actually start quite sloppy with my inks in the first page. They were quite rough, which was cool. I did enjoy it, but throughout the 5 pages I seemed to get a lot tighter and tighter with my line work. I'm not sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I'm still kind of trying to figure out how I feel about that. But anyway, moving on. What can I say about comics and making comics? It's a lot of hard work. I mean, this is only 5 pages, but it just took so much out of me. I think, flat inking, like just coloring in the shapes of the objects in like a basic color, is the worst part. It's always been the worst part of my work anyway. But doing it in comics is just gets so tedious. So I'm thinking, like, while I'm doing all this, I'm thinking about my projects in the future, and I've got some ambitious stories that I want to do that's going to be way over 5 pages. I'm talking like, hundreds, hopefully. And yeah, just the thought of flat inking all of those pages really fills me with dread. So I might have to get someone else to do that. We'll see. I'm not sure. I'm kind of 2 minds about it. What can I say? The rendering I wanted to keep simple because I tend to overdo everything. I probably still did push it a little bit too far. I like the idea of going back to minimal colors and just being a bit smarter about my color choices, and that having more of an impact rather than going with crazy effects all the time. And while I'm saying that, there's some glows popping up on the screen from all the fire and everything. So I did go a little bit overboard. But I felt like it kind of needed it, and that is my comfort zone, and I've always loved adding atmosphere and effects into scenery. So that was cool. That was page 1. Page 2, I felt like I was a bit more confident. It was sad. I have to like confess that I did shed a couple of tears while doing this, because it's just so sad. But I think it was enjoyable. Just trying to get into your characters' minds, because you really have to when you're drawing and trying to convey emotion of a character. You kind of have to feel what they feel. So yeah, basically her mother passes away in this scene, which is pretty tragic. But I have a tendency to like sad things, I guess. No, I don't really like it, but I think there's beauty in sadness, and I'm always about contrast. So yeah, page 3, we're just going to speed things up here because I don't think I really have time to go through every page. But page 3 was definitely the trickiest one, because basically what happens after the mother koala passes away is the child is awoken by a forest spirit. And originally I was quite inspired by Aboriginal folklore, some spirit in there called the Mimi spirit. And her design is quite inspired by that. I was literally going to be saying this is a Mimi spirit, but I decided against doing that because I didn't want it to come across as disrespectful or anything like that. I actually find it absolutely fascinating. So I really thought it was amazing to do that, but I just generally just called it a spirit. And after I made that decision, actually, it was good to step away from the Aboriginal side, because I went to I redesigned the character a little bit and gave her a bit more inspired by the Australian bush. So she's got like gum nuts and wattle and eucalyptus leaves and things. So she's basically an Australian bush spirit that I've just come up with, sort of, but inspired by the mythology. So yeah, she's basically going to guide the baby koala to safety. And yeah, I had a lot of fun with this page. Like, I felt like the inks is definitely a lot tighter here, less sloppy. I felt like I just wanted to put more effort into it once I got to this stage. But yeah, I just really enjoyed this one. I felt like I had a lot more confidence in what I was doing, because I'd already done a couple of pages and I knew the colours that I wanted to use. But yeah, I mean, I'm still trying to figure out my process, because like I said, I want to do comics in the future, but I'm unsure if I'm going to be doing them digitally. But that's, I'll work that out. What I did do digitally was actually leaded the whole thing as well in Procreate, which was tricky. I actually used the grid, but it's not showing up on the time-lapse replay, so you can't see it, but it is actually lined, and I used that as a guide, and then just drew my speech bubbles underneath. And I really like that, like, hand-drawn, rough kind of look. I felt like it just suited things. I really don't like perfect circles and things like that, so I wanted it to be a bit rough and a bit DIY. So yeah, that's a bit of my rambling thought process about making these 5 pages. Thank you guys so much for watching, and please go check out Australia Burns. Just chuck it into Google. I think it's australiaburns.bigcartel.com, and all the proceeds are going to 6 different charities, which is really going to help. So thank you so much, guys, and I'll see you in the next video.